A dog runs into a fire to save his owner. Amid the flames, he hears Penny's voice. He runs toward her and they embrace. Bolt guides her toward an exit. He finds a ventilation duct, but Penny is too weak to climb. She reminds him that he's her great friend and begins to close her eyes. Bolt lies down next to her and begins to whimper. However, to understand how he arrived at this point, we must go back to the beginning of the story. A smiling, playful puppy waits to be adopted. From the other side of the glass, a little girl named Penny watches him, and as if it were love at first sight, she hugs him and puts a collar on him with his new name, Bolt. 5 years later, Penny's life takes an unexpected turn. Her father, a brilliant scientist, calls her in desperation. There's not much time left. Dangerous men are after him, but Penny won't be alone. Her father has genetically altered Bolt, who now has extraordinary abilities that make him the perfect guardian, with a lightning bolt mark on his fur to prove it. Determined to save her father, Penny and Bolt keep watch on the agents of evil. Dr. Calico, the man with the green eye behind it all. Stealthily, they try to infiltrate the building, but a car speeds toward them and traps them. For Bolt, this is no problem. He knocks the car over with a headbutt and calmly gets the thug to reveal the location of Penny's father. Immediately, helicopters and motorcyclists spot them, and a chase begins. Fortunately, Bolt has been trained to use his powers under Penny's command. All she has to say is zoom zoom, and Bolt activates his super speed to escape danger. With super strength, laser beams, and superhuman agility, Bolt overcomes every obstacle with flair. Though it seems there's no way out, Penny gives one final command: Bolt, speak! With a super bar, Bolt blasts everyone into the air. These heroes have saved the day. Except none of this is real. As Penny takes Bolt back to the dressing room, the extras get up and the crew begins cleaning the set. It's all part of a TV show. Behind the scenes, the director, distressed, notices a microphone has appeared in the shot. Mindy, the network producer, doesn't see the problem. Frustrated, he explains that the success of the show depends on Bolt continuing to believe it's all real, that his owner is in danger, that he has superpowers, and that he's the only one who can save her. That authenticity is what hooks the audience. Without much concern, Mindy remarks that the show has become predictable. Modern audiences want fewer happy endings, and if the ratings drop, she threatens to cancel the show. Bolt's world has been designed to make him believe he's extraordinary. They've convinced him that, from a young age, he was gifted with unique abilities and has the potential to accomplish incredible things. Bolt doesn't have to do much to impress. With a simple tap of his paw, he disarms villains, and with a single bark, the whole world surrenders to him. He feels he's the only one capable of such feats, and everything around him reinforces that idea. He is a hero. When we analyze this situation, we can see it as an allegory of our own childhood, when our parents make us feel and believe that we're special and invincible. Just like Bolt, many parents, with good intentions, tell their children the story that they've been extraordinary from a very young age. They sometimes mention that the child started speaking very early, that they were incredibly good at puzzles, or that they learned to walk before other children. These stories parents tell encourage their children to believe that they're special and destined to do great things. Moreover, parents often celebrate each small achievement of their babies or young children as if it were something extraordinary. It doesn't matter if their drawing looks like a scribble or if they hide in the most obvious spot during hide and seek. Wanting to build up their self-esteem, they sometimes exaggerate how impressive these actions are, making their children feel brilliant. When Bolt uses his only paw to knock down the villains, it reminds me of a small child who gives an adult a high five, and the adult pretends to have been struck hard. Bolt's bark, which causes everyone to surrender, is similar to when a child asks for something and the parents do everything they can to please them. If the child cries or simply makes a face, the parents quickly interpret what it means, making the child feel like they have great power over their surroundings. Of course, parents do this because they want to foster good self-esteem in their children, and that's a very good thing. Children will definitely need it as they grow up. However, I think it's important to address something that's rarely discussed: the risks of overly high self-esteem, or rather, the danger of believing you are extraordinary. Just a quick pause to say that if you're enjoying this video and haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. It would mean a lot and really helps me keep making more videos and content like this. Alright, let's get back to the story. In the dressing room, we see Bolt, once playful, now entirely focused on protecting his owner. Even when Penny shows him a toy from his childhood, Bolt ignores it and continues intently watching the door. When a plastic cup falls, Bolt becomes agitated. He's clearly anxious and stressed. Bolt has come to believe that, thanks to his superpowers, he's responsible for Penny's safety. This belief, that he's extraordinary, puts enormous pressure on him to live up to the expectations others, and he himself, have placed on him. As a result, he lives in a constant state of stress and has stopped enjoying his normal life, his childhood. Instead of having fun like others, he feels obligated to always act like a hero. Penny receives a phone call, and though he tries to stop her, she hugs Bolt and leaves the dressing room alone. She tells her mother that she'd like to take the dog home for the weekend, but her agent interrupts. Speaking condescendingly, the agent reminds her that Bolt must not learn the truth. He'll stay on set as always. Downcast, Penny's taken to a photo shoot. With the set empty, the black cat who plays Dr. Calico's pet takes the opportunity to show his friend his favorite pastime, bothering Bolt. Amused by the idea that the dog believes everything is real, they play their characters while Bolt warns them that he won't rest until his owner is safe. Ignoring his threats, the cats leave, though one makes sure to tell Bolt that he's his biggest fan. With the lights off, the little dog falls asleep by the door, repeating the promise he made to Penny, that he will never let her get hurt. The next day, the action continues. Penny and Bolt infiltrate a secret lair, while the crew films every move and controls the visual effects. After taking care of the guards using his paw, Bolt seems to have everything under control, until the villain appears and reveals it was all a trap. Penny is captured, and before Bolt can make his big rescue, the camera cuts. Stressed and anxious, the little dog is locked in a cage. Behind the scenes, the director, satisfied, tells Mindy that he's kept his promise. This time, there will be no happy ending for Bolt. Penny hears Bolt's anxious barking and runs to tell him that she's fine, so he won't spend the night distressed. But the crew and her agent stop her. They remind her that Bolt must fully believe that his owner is in danger, so the next day's shoot will be perfect. Bolt is taken back to his dressing room. Desperate, he looks for a way to save Penny. The cats prepare to bother him again, and when they open the hatch, the little dog sees his chance. He manages to escape and runs off to find his owner. Believing he hears her voice, he ventures into the studio and, through a window, sees the cage where he thinks Penny's trapped. Determined to save her, he leaps toward the window at full speed, only to crash into it and fall unconscious into a box. Unaware that the star of the show is inside, the box is shipped out. When he wakes up, Bolt finds himself in an unfamiliar warehouse. After sneaking out, he crosses a massive city in search of his owner. Thinking he's found the man with the green eye, he chases at a gate, but it doesn't budge. He only ends up hitting his head. He tries to disable the man with his paw, but his attack has no effect. Seeing that the man wasn't who he was looking for, Bolt continues his disastrous search through the city, gradually noticing that his powers seem to be failing. For the first time, Bolt faces the real world without Penny by his side, and realizes that it doesn't match his expectations or past experiences. His powers aren't as extraordinary as he thought. The world is more complicated than he imagined, and he doesn't have as much control or influence over it as he believed. This stage in Bolt's story can be interpreted as adolescence, when we begin to explore the world without the supervision of our parents. We confront reality and discover that things are not as simple as we once believed. As we leave behind the protection of childhood, the world can become complicated, overwhelming, and challenging. We also start to recognize our limitations and come to understand that our abilities are not always enough to overcome every obstacle we encounter. But perhaps the hardest part is facing the idea that we may not be as special as we once believed. We take on new responsibilities and realize that we no longer stand out. We enter college, face more competition, and discover we may not be as brilliant, athletic, sociable, or funny as we thought our whole lives. Maybe we fail, and no one is there to reward us for mediocre work anymore. We're then forced to question who we are and what our place is in the world, because the identity we built in childhood no longer fits our reality. Bolt continues searching for Penny. He tries asking other dogs for help, but they seem more interested in what they had for breakfast. A girl tries to take him, but the little dog manages to escape, only to crash into a fence and get stuck. He tries to bend the metal with his paws, but it doesn't work. There, he meets some shady-looking pigeons who, after laughing at him, help him break free. Frustrated, Bolt doesn't understand why his powers aren't working, until he notices the source of his weakness: little polystyrene balls stuck to his fur. Wasting no time, he shakes off the polystyrene and asks the pigeons for information. However, they're distracted. They're convinced they've seen him before. Despite Bolt's face being plastered across all the ads in the city promoting his television show, the pigeons can't figure out where they know him from. Finally, Bolt decides he needs to interrogate a cat. He knows those creatures usually work for the man with the green eye. The pigeons light up and claim to know the perfect cat. Lying on top of a box, Mittens waits for her food. Terrified of her, the pigeons bring her food in exchange for protection and to avoid her supposedly sharp claws. Though the pigeons whisper that one day someone will teach her a lesson, Mittens laughs carefree, only to be immediately tackled by Bolt. He threatens Mittens, demanding information about Penny. She insists she has no idea what he's talking about, so Bolt decides to be more persuasive. He threatens to drop her off a bridge. Mittens still doesn't know who he's looking for, but she notices an inscription on his collar that says Hollywood and assures him she knows where he can find what he needs. After rummaging through a dumpster, Mittens, now tied to Bolt, pulls out a map and shows him their location. They're in New York. If he wants to reunite with his owner, Bolt will have to cross the country all the way to Hollywood. Having fulfilled her part of the deal, Mittens demands to be released, but Bolt replies he'll only do so once they find Penny. Dragging Mittens against her will, the new team finds a moving van with a Hollywood sticker. This will be the ride. Upon seeing a padlock on the door, Bolt tries to melt it with his laser beams. All he manages to do is to confirm to Mittens that he's completely crazy, but both manage to sneak into the truck and begin their journey. Penny and her mother are distraught over Bolt's disappearance. No one around them, except her mother, seems to understand the girl's feelings. This is reinforced when her agent arrives with good news. Penny will be interviewed on national television. Uninterested in the interview, Penny admits her worry that Bolt may be scared and lost. Her mother reassures her that Bolt isn't afraid of anything and couldn't have gone far. Meanwhile, in Ohio, Bolt and Mittens argue. The cat mocks his superpowers, while Bolt insists everything is super classified. Seizing a moment of distraction, Mittens tries to knock him out for a forced nap, but fails, accidentally unleashing a box full of polystyrene balls onto him. Panicked, Bolt decides the best option is to jump from the moving vehicle. Ignoring Mittens' screams, the two land in a field. Upon hitting the ground, Bolt looks at his paw and sees something strange. It's bleeding. Seeing her chance, Mittens grabs a piece of foam and threatens him with the power of polystyrene. Bolt manages to distract and disarm her, but then a strange sound comes from his stomach. Confused, he demands answers, convinced that Mittens has poisoned him. Mittens tells him that what he's feeling is just hunger, and claims to have the perfect antidote. For the first time, Bolt feels hunger and discovers that he can bleed. This moment is deeply symbolic, because it reveals to him that he's fragile and vulnerable. Even though he spent his entire life believing he's a hero, a protector gifted with extraordinary powers, he begins to understand that he has weaknesses and is susceptible to pain. They arrive at a hill and find a paradise of campers and barbecues. Excited, Mittens tells Bolt to use his special face, but he doesn't seem to understand. She shows him what she means, and with the power of cuteness, Bolt manages to get the entire campground to contribute to lunch for both him and Mittens. Meanwhile, we step inside one of the campers, where a small hamster named Rhino lives. A television fanatic, Rhino can't believe it when he sees his hero outside his window. The hamster presents himself to them, proclaiming he's a huge fan of Bolt's superbark, much to Mittens' surprise. Though she insists one lunatic is enough, Rhino shows off his combat skills, and Bolt, appreciating the enthusiasm, agrees to let the hamster join the adventure. The trio sets off in search of a vehicle to get to Penny, until they come across train tracks under a bridge. Bolt comes up with a plan. They'll jump off the bridge and land on a moving train car. Mittens begs him not to do it. Rhino tells her to relax. He's seen Bolt do it hundreds of times on the magic box. Mittens, realizing he means television, barely has time to scream before her two companions launch her toward the moving train. Bolt lands on the car, though with less style than he expected, while Mittens and Rhino struggle to hold on. Clinging to a ladder, Mittens screams at the dog that he's insane while he tries to help her. However, the ladder gives way, and although Mittens lands, Bolt's leash gets caught. Just before hitting a pole, Mittens holds the ladder while Rhino helps her. Bolt breaks free just in time, but the three of them end up flying off the train. Furious, she climbs a tree and yells at Bolt that nothing he says is real. His life is just a show to entertain humans. Bolt doesn't listen. He's convinced he's the superdog Penny always told him he was. Even though Bolt has already suspected that something isn't right, he prefers to ignore the possibility he's just an ordinary dog. This denial helps him preserve his heroic self-image and avoid the pain of realizing he doesn't meet his own expectations. If his entire life has been defined by being superior to other dogs, then what is his worth if he turns out not to be extraordinary? Bolt threatens to use his super bark to get Mittens down from the tree. She challenges him, and, as expected, the bark has no effect, except attracting the attention of animal control. Mittens panics and warns him they need to run, but it's already too late. They're captured and loaded into a truck, while Rhino watches from a distance. Meanwhile, Penny and her mother print flyers to report Bolt's disappearance. Suddenly, the agent arrives with news she's been hoping for. They found Bolt. Excited, Penny runs, only to discover that the dog in front of her isn't hers. The agent tries to convince her, but Mindy interrupts and approaches the girl, coldly telling her that she must make an adult decision. If she doesn't move on, the show will be cancelled, and many people will lose their jobs. Penny feels the weight of responsibility and, though devastated, agrees to continue without her real Bolt. Back in the van, Mittens explains that they're headed to a place where humans adopt the cutest animals, but those like her never leave. Bolt tries to force the cage open. Rhino sneaks into the truck and manages to free him. Bolt is ecstatic. He believes his powers have returned. However, he soon realizes it was Rhino who freed him. He notices the lightning bolt on his fur has started to fade. It was nothing more than makeup. At that moment, he comes to a painful realization. he was never special. Reality has finally overtaken his attempt to maintain the illusion of perfection. At the end of the day, all of us who were told by our parents that we were special, whether because we were skillful, intelligent, athletic, charismatic, or talented, face a moment when we must accept that we're not as exceptional as we were led to believe. When we enter the real world, we realize there are people far more talented and capable than we are in many areas. At first, this can be painful, because it feels good to think of ourselves as special. However, this realization can also be liberating, as we'll soon see. Bolt no longer believes he can complete the mission. Rhino confesses that Bolt has always inspired him to believe in heroes capable of protecting others and rescuing them from danger. Now he must save Mittens. Though Bolt isn't fully convinced, his sense of duty as a hero remains strong. I really love this scene because even though Bolt feels defeated, he has no superbark or laser vision. He ends up acting like a true hero without even realizing it. His commitment to those he loves, his loyalty, and his determination, even in his lowest moments, are truly remarkable. Here we begin to see that you don't need to be born with extraordinary abilities to have an admirable and heroic character. When they arrive at the shelter, they sneak in. While Rhino distracts the guard and socializes with the other dogs, Bolt finds Mittens' cage. Thanks to a series of fortunate events, the team escapes. On the road, they chase a moving truck and manage to climb aboard. Once inside, Bolt confesses to Mittens that now he knows everything has been a fantasy. Mittens tries to confront him and assures him that being an ordinary dog is the best job in the world. She shows him what normal dogs do: drink from the toilet, eat kitchen scraps, and best of all, car rides, where they stick their heads out the window with their tongues hanging out. Bolt gives it a try and feels a joy he's never experienced before. He starts to enjoy fetching sticks, playing with balls, digging holes in the ground, burying things, chasing other dogs, and playing with the sprinkler water. Bolt starts to discover all the small pleasures of a normal dog's life. He doesn't need to be a super dog to be happy. In fact, it seems even easier to be happy now that he knows he's not extraordinary. It had been a long time since Bolt lived this happily and peacefully. He'd been carrying immense pressure, stress, and anxiety because he felt he couldn't fail, that he had to be extraordinary at all times. However, now that his only responsibility is to be an ordinary dog, he can enjoy life without the burden of saving the world, without having to be a hero. The realization that we're not extraordinary, but simply ordinary people, can be disappointing. However, it's also deeply liberating, because it allows us to let go of the pressure, demands, and expectations we placed on ourselves, and to enjoy life more fully. Many studies explore this topic. One published in the Journal of Happiness Studies concludes that life satisfaction is not related to the pursuit of perfection or having exceptional abilities. On the contrary, people with high and unrealistic expectations tend to be unhappier and less satisfied with their lives. Disappointment and dissatisfaction arise when expectations clash with reality. And if those expectations are unrealistic, that's a perfect recipe for disappointment. In contrast, those who know how to adapt, accept things as they are, and maintain more flexible expectations tend to be happier. Additionally, other research has shown that perfectionism is linked to anxiety, depression, and stress. People who set extremely high standards often feel more frustrated, even when they achieve impressive things. On the other hand, those with more realistic and modest expectations tend to feel more satisfied with their accomplishments and happier with their lives. Mittens confesses that she knows so much about domestic life because she once had a home, but chose to run away. She wasn't born for the indoors. She was made for the streets. And so the three friends continue their journey, crossing deserts, mountains, and cities, facing all kinds of challenges just to reach Penny. Bolt never gives up in his determination to return to her, to his home. They arrive in Las Vegas, where they find a paradise of food and breathtaking views. Mittens couldn't be more ecstatic. The next morning, Mittens tells Bolt she has a surprise for him. She's built a home for the two of them and is sure they could have a great life here. Ashamed, Bolt thanks her, but reminds her he still has a mission: to find Penny. Mittens feels betrayed and reminds him that everything in his life was a fantasy, including Penny. Bolt denies it, and she tells him humans always say they'll take care of you, until one day they leave and take all their love with them. She reveals that she once had a family that loved her. They even had her claws removed, and she accepted it. But over time, her family abandoned her, and since then, she's had to survive on her own. Bolt deeply regrets her situation, but assures her that Penny is different. She'd never do something like that. With heavy hearts, the two friends part ways. Later, Rhino asks Mittens where Bolt went. She lies, saying he decided to fight the man with the green eye on his own, and doesn't need them anymore. Rhino ignores the comment and prepares to follow Bolt. Mittens asks him why he would follow someone who no longer needs them, and he replies that if there's one thing Bolt has taught him, is that you never abandon a friend when they need you the most. Meanwhile, Bolt has arrived in Hollywood and, with the help from some pigeons, finds the recording studio. His friends aren't far behind and follow his trail to the same place. Inside the studio, Bolt sees Penny and runs toward her, filled with joy at finally, after everything, having found her. But just before he reaches her, his replacement, a dog identical to him, enters the scene and runs into Penny's arms. Bolt freezes as he watches Penny embrace the new Bolt and tell him how much he loves him. Heartbroken, he walks away. But Mittens stays behind a little longer and discovers that it was all just a rehearsal. When it ends, she sees Penny mourning the loss of her real friend. Penny has begun filming the new episode of the show. She's hanging from a rope in Dr. Calico's lair. The replacement dog enters the scene, but gets scared by the extras and runs away, triggering a fire. Mittens finds Bolt, and he admits she was right. Penny's love wasn't real. However, before Mittens can explain what really happened, they hear a commotion on the set. Bolt rushes off to find Penny. She's still tied to the rope as the fire spreads through the studio. Helpless as the set collapses and everyone flees, she manages to free herself from the rope, but now finds herself trapped in a burning building that crumbles by the second, with no idea where the exit is. With the help of his friends, Bolt manages to enter the studio. Amid the chaos and smoke, he hears Penny's voice. When she sees him, she recognizes him immediately. He runs to her, and Penny embraces him tightly, relieved he's safe. Bolt leads her toward an exit. He finds a ventilation duct, but Penny is too weak to climb. As smoke fills the studio, she reminds him that he's her great friend and begins to close her eyes. Bolt lies next to her and begins to whimper. However, he decides he's not going to give up so easily. He made a promise to Penny he would never let her be harmed. He takes position and, using his last strength, lets out a bark. The sound travels through the duct and catches the attention of the firefighters. Thanks to his super bark, they're found and rescued. Without any extraordinary powers, Bolt manages to save the life of the person he loves. He doesn't need special abilities. His loyal and determined character is enough to make him heroic. In the end, heroism doesn't come from being born gifted or special. It's shown in the everyday moments. We can be great in the simple things, when we show up for others, when we act with kindness, and when we do the right thing, even in difficult situations. It's not about being truly extraordinary, but about being honest, empathetic, determined, and brave in ordinary life. In the face of the tragedy, the agents become excited, imagining how to profit from the situation. But, pushed to her limit, Penny's mother throws him out and announces that both her daughter and Bolt are leaving the world of show business. Months pass, and though the Bolt show continues with a new cast and declining quality, Mittens, Rhino, and Bolt are happy as part of Penny and her mother's family. Playful and smiling, just as he was in the beginning, the little dog is finally free to play with his owner, and she to enjoy her childhood alongside her faithful friend. Bolt's story can be seen, as I said, as an allegory about growing up. At first, many of us believe we're special and invincible because, if we were lucky, that's how our parents made us feel. But when we face the real world, we discover we're not as extraordinary as we thought. This, however, is not something negative. It's simply part of the journey toward maturity. Growing up means recognizing we're not special, but it also means understanding that we don't need to be to live meaningful lives. The ordinary can be deeply fulfilling, and greatness can be found with simplicity. In the real world, true greatness doesn't lie in having superpowers, but in our character, in the determination to do good, in giving our best and fulfilling our responsibilities, whether as good parents, good children, friends, or siblings. As Bolt clearly showed, being a hero or being exceptional isn't about being born with special abilities or being unique. It's about demonstrating extraordinary character and resilience in ordinary circumstances. Thanks for staying until the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe and share it with a friend who you think might enjoy it. And you and I'll see you in the next one.